Hello, good evening and welcome to the program. Joining us this evening on News First is the cricketing legend Sir Ian Botham, who's in Sri Lanka to undertake a walk from Kilinochchi all the way down to Seenigama. Sir Ian, thank you very much for speaking to News First.
Pleasure.
You stay here in Sri Lanka. Sir Ian, you're in the game of cricket. You're recognized widely as a man who's changed the face of the game, who's been somewhat of a game changer. What motivated you to do the things that you did back in the 80s?
I don't think it's motivation. It was my job. I'm a professional cricketer and I played, and I was in the right time in the right place. And I think the biggest self-belief, I think, is the most important thing. I don't think I ever didn't back myself in a situation. And sometimes, the tougher it gets, you need a little bit of luck. But if you're prepared to guts it out, you can get rewards. It was just the way I played. It's just in my makeup, and that's why I walked over 10,000 miles for various charities. You don't do it for your health. You do it because there's a driving force in there, and since I finished cricket, that driving force is still there, but I need something to do with it. So the walks is a great way. The Laureate Sports for Good Foundation, we've been involved over here since '04, and that's since the tsunami, and all these things, it's just the same when I play. I always wanted to be in the mix. I want to be doing something. I don't want to be sitting around. So that's why we're here.
You're a very driven individual. At the same time, when you were playing cricket, you were amongst a pantheon of cricketing greats. Who would you say was, as a bowler, who would you say your favourite batsman was to bowl to?
Favourite, or the one that I found most challenging?
The one you found most challenging. Because you get cricketing rivalries. Who was your greatest rival as a batsman?
I think the best player I ever bowled to was Viv Richards. There's been other great players around, but Viv Richards is the standout player because he had controlled aggression. Some players, like a Sunil Gavaskar, can knock you around and manoeuvre the ball, but Viv could destroy you. If he got going, it was very hard to control. So Viv. But I think the most motivation an England player has is exactly the same motivation an Australian player has. Both England and Australian players want to be in the test arena playing against the old enemy, and you want to beat them. But the really sweet part is when you can beat them in their own backyard. So I think that's the thing, that was the biggest motivation. Those games, that was the history, the tradition, the rivalry, the banter. It was a tough place to be, a good place to be.
So during your walk, you're going to be joined by some Australian cricketing legends as well. Alan Border and Steve Waugh will be joining you. In a recent article that you wrote, you were saying that first you're going to walk all over Sri Lanka, and then you're going to go to Australia and watch England walk all over Australia in the Ashes. You were also mentioning about how these cricketers are going to be joining you from Australia, and how you were not sure what's going to hurt them most, the walk, or what you're going to have to say about Australia.
Well, I know the walk's going to hurt them.
What is it about what you're going to say to them about Australia that's going to hurt them?
The banter between me and, for instance, Alan Border, who grew up playing Test cricket, has been there for 40 years nearly now, just working it out. Yeah, 40 years close on. So Steve Waugh came on a little bit later than that. But no, that's the whole point. That's the banter. That's the rivalry. That's the... if you're good enough to be in the kitchen at its hottest, you're good enough to have banter with the same people. And that's all it is. It's good humoured. There'll be a lot of rivalry. And I'll tell you one thing, neither of those two guys will want to stop walking. Even if they've got a broken leg, they're not going to let me walk, and they're going to pull the plug. No way, and vice versa. I'll crawl if I have to.
Then also wanted to ask you, now, you predicted in the Ashes 5-0 at home, 5-0 away.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still hold to that prediction given Australia's recent performance in England?
I don't. Well, they were saved twice in England by the rain. Otherwise, it would have been 5-0. We then go down to Australia. I look at the two teams and I think, well, how can Australia beat that England team? The only people that can beat the England team are themselves if they don't perform. If they perform to the level that they're capable of and should have performed at in this series, I expect them to. You're not going to get much weather interference. You're going to get quicker and bouncier pitches, which I think suits the England team. We've got the tall bowlers, the fit tall bowlers. and we've got the top 7 batsmen who like the ball coming on. So yeah, I see no reason. I cannot see Australia winning a Test match.
Why is it that about the current constitution of the Australian team? What is it that's lacking?
Well, Australia made a big mistake, and a very un-Australian mistake, and that is that they suddenly lost 9, 10 players, 11 players in the space of maybe 2.5, 3 years. Well, they don't do that. In the past, I remember when Mark Waugh got pushed out of the side, he could have still played for another 18 months, 2 years, easily, in my opinion. But they say, no, we're not going to leave ourselves exposed. We're 2 or 3 players going out in the middle order. So he went out of the side, and I think it was Damien Martin, I think they brought in at that time, or Greg Blewett maybe. But they brought those guys in because they didn't want to leave themselves exposed. And what happened was you had such great players. Gilchrist, Waugh, Warne, Glenn McGrath, Hayden. I'm just you go through. It was about 10 of them that went, all within that small period. And you know Langer, you can't replace these guys overnight. Gillespie, they all went in that very small period.
That they didn't have a good second tier to come forward?
They didn't have a second tier, but they should normally they would have been cultivating that team and keep it ticking over. The problem is that the players we've just mentioned were all exceptional players. So it takes a very, very brave selector to walk in and say to Adam Gilchrist, look, you've done really well. I know you can play for another 2 years, but I'm afraid you're going to have to go because we want to bring someone in. It isn't going to happen. You're not going to kick Gilchrist out. You're not going to take Warne out. So they had what was their blessing at the time when they had a side that dominated for all those years. The problem is that side grew up together and also disbanded together, and very, very difficult to replace. And that's the problem they've got now, and that's what they're trying to do. And they're trying to bring this team on. They will get better. They will get better over the next 2-3 years, but they're not going to get better in 2 or 3 months.
So you're saying that you don't foresee Australia winning a Test in the next?
I don't see them against England.
Against England.
Yeah.
Against the current English makeup. Moving on, saying Sri Lanka, ever since the '96 World Cup, Sri Lanka has been in 2 World Cup finals, and is slowly gaining a reputation of being chokers. Would you say that reputation is deserved? Is Sri Lanka like the new South Africa? Are we the new chokers?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think if you think back to, I think about the game in Mumbai when Dhoni's innings, what he's capable of doing that was a little bit like what Viv Richards can do. And Dhoni had his day. He put himself up the order and smashed it to all parts. One of the great innings in one-day cricket. You can't legislate for that. I actually thought Sri Lanka had done enough to win the game. Particularly when they got a couple of wickets early on. I thought, here we go. Dhoni came to the crease. I thought, well, if this goes wrong, then Sri Lanka, it's theirs for taking. But it didn't go wrong, and Dhoni had played out of his skin. So, no, I don't think so at all. You've got too many good players for that, and experienced players. Kumar, Mahela, these guys, you know, if you look at the teams, and Xanath when he was playing, Murli, you know, Chamindavas, you know, there's so many good players over the years. No, I think the only thing that scares me a little bit with Sri Lankan cricket, and I think it's something that they might need to address, the amount of one-day cricket they play as opposed to the amount of Test cricket. Your best players come from the Test arena because they are the best players and they can adapt to other forms of the game. You hear about these specialist players who just play T20. The reason they just play T20 is they're not good enough to play Test cricket.
Is that a realistic portrayal of it? Do you think that with the commercialization of the shorter formats of the game and the shorter formats becoming more popular, especially the T20, with the IPL, the BPL, the SLPL, the Big Bash League, etc., big money spends, do you think that this is having a detrimental effect on Test?
No, I don't. Look, Test cricket is the flagship. There is a place for T20 cricket, and I think international T20 cricket should only happen once every 4 years and make it special, a World Cup. I think you take it out, the international players have enough to do. If you're going to let these guys go and play in the IPL, or going to play in the Big Bash or wherever, then you don't want to clutter up your own fixture list with more T20 games. Keep it special. There's too much of it now. And in England, certainly, the crowds were down. People can't afford to go to two T20 matches a week and put the 4 kids in the car, drive up the motorway. You can't do it. You can't afford to do it. So I think the balance needs to be addressed.